The glasses clinked so loudly, it seemed they were shattering the crystal vault of my world. At the dining room table in my parents' house, Vanessa, my younger sister, beamed, sitting at the head of the table like a queen at her own banquet. The atmosphere was filled with a sweet, suffocating triumph. They were celebrating what they considered a brilliant decision. I felt a cold chord begin to quietly hum beneath my skin. "Well," Vanessa's voice, velvety and contented, drowned out the laughter. She languidly swirled her glass, watching the bubbles play. "The budget crisis is over. I've found the perfect source. Maya's savings account at Northern Trust Bank is just what I need." The silence that followed her words was thick and sticky. I slowly, very slowly, placed my fork next to my plate. 8 years in federal supervision taught me one thing. When everything inside is crumbling, your face should become a stony mask. A slight smile, a neutral gaze. "Will you repeat that, please?" My voice was even, almost indifferent. "Oh, come on, Maya." Vanessa waved her hand, and her bracelets jingled. The sound was jarring. "That same account you're not using. I need it more, much more." My mother reached across the table, her fingers gently resting on Vanessa's hand. An affirmative gesture, an alliance. "It's practical, my dear," she said to me, her voice filled with unwavering confidence. "You live in that cramped room. You drive a wreck. You clearly don't invest in anything serious. And Vanessa's wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event." Something in my chest tightened into a tight, red-hot knot. I took a small sip of ice water, giving myself a second. "And how did you gain access to my account?" The tone didn't change. It was exactly how I interrogated managers who siphoned off shady assets. Vanessa turned her gaze to her mother. That same one. The childhood. The secret one. "Mom still has your old information from your student days. We just made a transfer. Don't make a big deal out of it." We just made a transfer. The words hung in the air, heavy and tangible. "I see," I nodded, breaking that knot inside me into sharp, clear fragments. "And how much money did you withdraw?" $47,000, Vanessa blurted out triumphantly, her eyes sparkling. "Enough for a fancy hall, a runway dress, and a luxury suite in Bali. Everything will be amazing. The organizer is thrilled." My father, who had been silently picking at his salad, finally raised his head. His voice was like a death sentence. "Your sister deserves it, Maya. She worked so hard. You'll save up. You're young." "I'm 32, I reminded her gently. "Vanessa is 28. "Exactly," my mother chimed in. "You have your whole life ahead of you, and Vanessa needs it now. And anyway, what were you saving for? No husband? No home? The money is just gathering dust." The corners of my lips twitched, and the shadow of a smile appeared. Thoughts of the real purpose of that money, of the quiet, methodical work that would soon be completed, raced through my mind. But I remained silent. Derek, Vanessa's fiancé, fidgeted next to her. A vague unease crossed his face. "Maybe I should have asked, Van?" "Derek, honey, don't be a bore," Vanessa rolled her eyes. "It's family money. Maya would have agreed anyway. I just saved us from an unnecessary conversation." "Would I have?" I asked so quietly that everyone fell silent for a moment. "Of course!" Mother slammed her palm on the table, and the clatter of dishes echoed in the silence. "You're a good sister. Family helps family. We always shared everything." Images flashed through my mind like sharp shards. The envelope with graduation money that turned into her trip to the seaside. The keys to my first car, which so naturally migrated to her purse. The college fund that mysteriously vanished when Vanessa needed to join a networking club. Yes, we always shared, one way or the other. "When's the wedding?" I suddenly asked, my voice even and businesslike again. Vanessa brightened, taking this for capitulation. "Saturday, in 4 days. You'll come, right? I know you're always working, but you have to be there." "I wouldn't miss it for anything," I answered with complete sincerity. "Remind me where exactly?" "The Grand Mont Estate," she almost squealed with delight. "That's where your money went. An upgrade to the Grand Ballroom. Everything will be perfect. 200 guests, a live orchestra, roses from Ecuador. Derek's family will be impressed. Derek's mother, Patricia, an elegant and silent woman until now, coughed lightly into her napkin. Her gaze, intelligent and appraising, slid from me to my mother. "That sounds grandiose," she said politely, but a steely note crept into her voice. "Although I am surprised about access to my sister's accounts. It's a bit unconventional." "Oh, we are very close," my mother quickly interjected, her smile unnaturally wide. "We have no secrets. We share everything. Maya understands that Vanessa's happiness is happiness for us all." I caught the slightest movement of Patricia's eyebrows. She understood everything, but she remained silent. "Well," I pushed back my chair and stood up, carefully folding my napkin. "That was very telling. I have to go. I have an early start tomorrow." "Still at your boring banking job?" Vanessa snorted. "And what do you do there? Push papers?" "Something like that," I nodded, already putting on my coat. "Congratulations, Vanessa. I hope everything goes exactly as you planned." My mother hugged me at the door, her perfume smelling of nostalgia and betrayal. "Don't sulk, darling. Everything is for the best. And at the wedding, you'll meet Derek's single friends. We've already seated you with them." I just smiled back, wordlessly. The cold night air hit me like a slap, sobering and invigorating. As I walked to my old Honda, my phone vibrated in my pocket. A message from Harrison. "A transfer has been processed at Northern Trust. The unauthorized access pattern matches your case parameters. Target confirmation required." My fingers didn't waver on the keyboard. I wrote, looking at the dark windows of my parents' house where the holiday lights still glowed. "Confirmed. Subject is a family member, following protocol." The reply came almost instantly. "Acknowledged. The team will be ready by Friday evening. The location is set for Saturday morning. Good luck, Maya." I got behind the wheel and started the engine. Their laughter echoed in the quiet cabin. Grandmont. Saturday. Roses from Ecuador. My $47,000 weren't just money. They were bait. And I wasn't just a disgruntled sister. I was an undercover agent, and my 8-year operation had just reached the finish line. My sister's wedding promised to be a truly unforgettable event. The drive home was a tunnel carved out of rage and cold, merciless satisfaction. My tiny apartment, a spacious loft in the heart of the city, purchased 3 years ago with cash, welcomed me with silence and sterile order. I dropped my bag and opened my laptop. The screen illuminated a face, the same face that had maintained an icy calm just an hour earlier. The Northern Trust account wasn't mine, not in any personal sense. It was a controlled account, a tool I, as a senior inspector on the Joint Treasury FBI Task Force, maintained specifically for my work. $47,000 weren't savings, not a dream for the future. These were federal surveillance devices, bait in an investigation into the bank's glaring internal security flaws. And my family, my blood, had just seized upon it with such gusto. That my mother's old credentials had worked, that was impossible. The system should have requested reauthorization, but it didn't. The transfer had gone through. So the vulnerability we'd been documenting for 18 long months was real and deadly. Vanessa, unknowingly, had exposed herself and the bank perfectly. She had become a living, breathing test case for a systemic failure. I opened the Northern Trust files, reports of elderly clients robbed by children whose access should have been revoked long ago, of businessmen whose former partners had been siphoning off funds for years. The bank denied it, hiding behind a screen of flawless protocols. And now I had proof, issued to me, personal. A sudden call made me jump. It was Director Walsh. "Maya, I know. Are you okay?" His voice was even, but I heard the subtext. Regret. Caution. "It's perfectly fine, sir. The incident provides impeccable documentation for our case. Your own family cleaned out a federal bait-and-switch account." "They didn't know, sir. I stated firmly, looking at the dark window, which reflected my impassive reflection. They thought it was my personal money. The pause on the other end of the line was long and heavy. It's still embezzlement, he finally said, and a violation of federal law. That's why all the reports have already been filed, I replied. The money went to the wedding contractors. The primary recipient was the Grandmont estate. I've requested coordination with the FBI for Saturday morning. Maya, you understand this will mean questioning your relatives in front of witnesses on her wedding day. The law applies equally to everyone, sir, I said, a lump forming in my throat. I swallowed it. I understand that. Another pause. Weighing. Okay, the operation is authorized, but you're not part of the interrogation team. You're observing. Harrison is in charge. Understood. I found myself Friday morning in my real office, deep in the Federal Reserve Building, not in a cramped bank branch, as they thought. My title? Senior Inspector of the Financial Crimes Division. 2 appearances before Congress, Level 4 security clearance, an MIT degree in forensic accounting, which I never mentioned at the family dinner table. To them, I was a loser in a cheap suit shuffling papers. And I let them think so. It was my armor. Harrison entered without knocking, his face serious. Grandmont is cooperating fully. As soon as we explained the situation, they were completely cooperative. By the way, your sister has already managed to annoy their staff. I have no doubt, I muttered, looking through the reports. The coordinator mentioned an interesting detail. Vanessa insisted on contract terms where all deposits were non-refundable and payments were only made in advance, in cash or by bank transfer. No cards, no paper trail. I tore my eyes away from the screen, feeling a new thread in the investigation clicking. That's unusual. We thought so too. We checked the records. She's not the first to ask for such terms, but she is the first whose money came from a flagged account. Perhaps the establishment is involved in something bigger. We're expanding the operation. That evening, the phone rang. My mother. Her voice was syrupy, conciliatory. Maya, dear, I just want to make sure you're not mad. You understand everything, right? I understand everything, Mom, I replied, looking at the prepared operational plans on the table. Vanessa's worried you'll make a scene tomorrow. You won't, will you? There won't be a scene, I promise. Everything will be strictly according to protocol. Protocol? She snorted. What strange language you use. Fine. The rehearsal dinner is tonight, but you're busy as always. Tomorrow at 2. Don't be late. I'll be there early. Oh, you want to help with the decorations? Something like that. Saturday. The morning was cool, the air buzzing with anticipation. I put on my best navy blue suit, Chief Inspector's armor. I pinned my identification badge to my lapel. It felt heavy and cold. I pulled up to the Grandmont at 8:47. The estate sprawled in a dazzling array of well-kept luxury, ready to welcome 200 guests. The parking lot hummed with catering vans, florists' cars. I pulled into a parking spot next to 3 unmarked black SUVs. Harrison was waiting at the entrance with 6 agents. His nod was curt. Good morning, Inspector Chin. Ready. The coordinator, Margaret, ran up to us, her face pale with tension. The bride arrived 15 minutes ago. She's in the bridal suite with her mother and bridesmaids. What should I... First, we need to secure the location and document the financial transactions, Harrison said clearly. No one leaves the premises until the initial interviews. I must say, Margaret swallowed, casting a quick glance at me, when I told Ms. Chin there was a problem with her payment, she became aggressive. She shouted that everything had been paid and threatened legal action. What problem with the payment? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. The bank flagged the transfer this morning, Margaret whispered. The funds are frozen pending investigation. I tried to explain the need to verify the source, but she wouldn't listen. Harrison and I exchanged a quick glance. The irony was bitter and stark. Northern Trust's protocols had finally worked. A full day late, after the money had already flown away, but the fact remained. The bank had raised its flag. And now that flag was scarlet, the federal color. Let's go talk to the bride, Harrison said, his voice brooking no argument. We walked down the marble corridor, our footsteps echoing loudly. Vanessa's voice reached us before we saw the door, shrill, hysterical, saturated with rage. "I don't care about your banking errors. The money is mine. It was transferred legally. This is my day, and if you think I'm going to let anything ruin it, you're all crazy." Harrison knocked firmly and firmly. The door was jerked open. Vanessa stood before us, glowing like a torch in a dazzling white dress, a masterpiece of lace and silk, bought with stolen money. "What now? I told you—" She froze, her gaze sliding over the badges on our lapels. The words caught in her throat. "Miss Vanessa Chin," Harrison's voice was cold as steel, "I'm an FBI special agent. These are my colleagues from the Treasury Department's Banking Supervision Unit. We need to discuss the transfer from the Northern Trust account from Tuesday." My mother appeared from the back of the room. Her face, just now flushed with worry, turned white as flour. "What's going on?" Her confused gaze fell on me, on my suit, on my shiny badge. "Maya, what are you wearing? Why are you—" "Mrs. Chin," Harrison continued, cutting her off, "we're talking about unauthorized access to a federal control account." "What account?" Vanessa's voice shrieked. "It was Maya's savings account, her personal account." "No," I said, stepping forward. The sound of my own voice was alien and inexorable. "It was a Treasury Department account. The funds in it are federal. The money you took belongs to the government." Vanessa recoiled as if she'd been physically struck. All the arrogance, all the radiance, washed from her face in one fell swoop, leaving only a gray, childish confusion. You work for the government?" "I'm a senior inspector in the Financial Crimes Unit. 8 years. The account you emptied was part of an active investigation into Northern Trust vulnerabilities. Your access proved those vulnerabilities to be deadly real." Mom grabbed the doorframe, her fingers digging into the wood. "But you said you were just a clerk, pushing papers." "I investigate bank crimes. Yeah, I have plenty of paperwork. You decided yourself that I'm a nobody. I didn't try to convince you otherwise." Harrison pulled out his tablet, his movements practiced and impersonal. "Miss Chin, Mrs. Chin, you both need to come with us for questioning. Unauthorized appropriation of federal funds is a serious offense." "I didn't know." Vanessa started wailing, tears streaming down her face, mixing with her mascara. "How was I supposed to know? They were just lying there." "That's the problem we're investigating," I retorted calmly. "The fact that you were able to access the account is a bank glitch, but the transfer itself is theft." The silhouettes of the bridesmaids in identical lavender dresses appeared in the doorway. Their faces were frozen in masks of shock. "This is insane," my mother whispered, her body shaking with small tremors. "Maya, tell them it was a mistake, that you authorized it." "I didn't authorize it. I found out about it when you triumphantly announced it to me at dinner, and I immediately filed federal reports." "You reported it? On your family?" Her eyes showed confusion bordering on horror. "I documented the crime." "The law doesn't care about criminals' family ties." Harrison gestured into the hallway. "If you follow us, interrogation rooms have been prepared." "But the wedding," Vanessa sobbed, her voice turning into a howl. "The guests arrive in 5 hours. Derek's already at the church. This can't be happening." "The venue has been assigned to the investigation," Harrison stated, without a trace of emotion. "No event will be held here today." As if on cue, more agents appeared in the hallway and began working with the staff. I saw florists being turned away with their baskets and cello musicians being shown the exit. Derek's mother, Patricia, rushed down the hallway. Her face was contorted with anger and bewilderment. "What the hell is going on?" "Security won't let us into the hall. There are people in suits everywhere." She froze when she saw our group. Her gaze slid over the tearful Vanessa, over my deathly pale mother, and finally settled on me, on my badge. "Mrs. Morrison," I said, maintaining a professional tone, even though everything inside was screaming, "I apologize for the disturbance. Serious circumstances have come to light regarding the source of the event's funding. The estate is part of an active federal investigation. Patricia's eyes widened. She looked at me, and respect finally showed in her gaze. And cold fury. Maya, what does this mean? I'm Senior Inspector Maya Chin. Your future daughter-in-law and my mother have misappropriated federal funds. This entire wedding was paid for with stolen government money. Patricia turned to Vanessa, slowly, as if on hinges. You stole from the government. I didn't steal, she howled. It was Maya's account. How could I have known? Perhaps, Patricia said in an icy, clear whisper, you should have asked before taking what wasn't yours, no matter what. At that moment, my father appeared at the end of the hallway, apparently having just parked his car. His face wore an expression of happy pre-holiday bustle. What's the matter? Vanessa, darling, why ruin your makeup? Still. He fell silent. His eyes scanned the agents, settled on me, on my badge, and finally on his sobbing daughter and trembling wife. All his confidence evaporated. Mr. Chin, Harrison's voice sounded like a gong. Your wife and daughter are being held for questioning on charges of embezzlement of government funds. Do you know anything about the transfer from Northern Trust? My father's mouth moved silently. He looked at me, not through me, as usual, but straight into my eyes. For the first time in many, many years, a silent, desperate question clung to his gaze. Why? What have you done? My father stood, his hands at his sides, looking at me as if he were seeing me for the first time. His eyes gleamed not just with confusion, but with the utter collapse of a universe in which his eldest daughter was a faceless extra. Vanessa and Mom stole $47,000 from a federal account, Dad, I said, every word falling like a stone. I'm the federal inspector in charge. There's no wedding. They both face criminal charges. He shook his head slowly, refusing to understand. But you're in the bank, the papers. Deep breath, exhale. 8 years of silence exploded in a quiet, clear voice. I investigate financial crimes. I have a master's degree in forensic accounting from MIT. I've been with the Treasury Department for 8 years. Level 4 security clearance. I testified before Congress. And the account Vanessa cleaned out was federal property. Not mine, government property. It sounded like a death sentence. Vanessa, leaning against the doorframe, slid silently down, the folds of her dress billowing like a shroud. This can't be happening. Her whisper sounded like the creaking of ripping fabric. It can't be. My wedding. At that moment, Derek appeared in the hallway, pushing aside the agent. He was wearing simple trousers and a shirt, his face a mask of utter bewilderment. Van, what's going on? Why are there agents here? Patricia quickly approached her son and took him by the elbow. Derek, we need to talk now. As they stepped aside and I saw Derek's face darken with each word his mother spoke, Harrison began reading her rights. His voice, monotonous and relentless, overlapped Vanessa's sobs. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say... Her sobs grew louder, becoming hysterical. The bridesmaids wept quietly, and I knew they weren't mourning Vanessa's fate, but their lost day, their beautiful dresses that would never see the light of day. Another agent approached Harrison and whispered, The establishment's payment has been confirmed. The transfer was cleared by the receiving bank this morning. Northern Trust is aware of it and is providing full access. They acknowledge the security breach. Harrison merely nodded, but in his gaze I saw the satisfaction of a hunter who has obtained irrefutable evidence. This case will be a case study. My mother suddenly came to life. She lunged toward me, but the agent gently restrained her. Maya, please, her voice broke, ringing with a genuine animalistic plea. We'll give the money back. We'll apologize. This is family. Take it back. I can't take it back, I replied, a lump in my throat. This isn't a family dispute. It's the law. You gained unauthorized access. That's a crime. You transferred funds. That's theft of state property. You paid for services. You involved third parties in the investigation. Period. But you're our daughter, she shouted, like the final argument in the universe. Doesn't that mean anything? It means it hurts me, I said quietly, my voice wavering for a moment. It hurts because you thought so little of me that you didn't even bother to ask. But that doesn't change the law. No one is above it, Mom, not even family. At that moment, Derek returned. His face was closed, unreadable. He walked over to Vanessa, who was sitting on the floor, and looked down at her. Is that true? You stole from your sister? It's not stealing, she breathed, a last spark of hope flaring in her eyes. It's family. She didn't use them. But they weren't hers, Derek said slowly. They were government property. And you didn't ask. You just took them. I took them for us, for our wedding. Derek glanced at his mother, at me, and back at her. Something dimmed in his eyes. I need time. Think about it. Think about it? Her scream rose to the ceiling. About what? The wedding is in 5 hours. There won't be a wedding, Vanessa, he said quietly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Look around. Agents, the investigation. Your family is facing trial. It's all over. We can fix this. No, he interrupted her, his voice firm for the first time. We can't. And even if we could, I'm not sure I want to marry a woman who steals from her sister and then blames everyone but herself. Patricia took his arm. Come on, son. They need to deal with the consequences. As they left, Vanessa made a sound no human throat could make, something between a groan and a howl. She collapsed to the floor, her dress, a marvel of sartorial art, stretching around her like a dirty, hopeless halo. Harrison gestured to the 2 female agents. Take them to the interrogation rooms. Politely, but firmly. Mom and Vanessa were led away. Dad was left standing in the deserted hallway, an island of helplessness in a sea of federal activity. Did you really arrange all this? He whispered. For money? For the law, Dad. If a stranger had done this, would you have expected me to ignore it? He was silent. I love you, my voice broke, but I controlled it. But love isn't synonymous with permissiveness. It doesn't mean turning a blind eye to crimes. They made a choice. Now they reap the consequences. You ruined my sister's life. No. I stopped a crime. Her wedding is ruined. And life? Life is what she'll build afterward. Maybe this is the call that will finally make her grow up. I turned and walked toward where Harrison was organizing the interrogations. Behind me, the sound of vans turning around, canceled orders, and phone calls to disappointed guests lingered. A symphony of collapse. The interrogations lasted 4 hours. Vanessa vacillated between hysteria, anger, and attempts to find a way out. Her mother repeated like a mantra that I'd deceived them, that I was to blame for not informing the world about my important work. Harrison was unwavering. The facts were ironclad. Access, theft, use. The investigation into the bank's failures faded into the background in the face of a direct criminal investigation. By 2 o'clock, the very moment when the bride was supposed to enter, to the sounds of a marching band, it was all over. Mom and Vanessa were released, with official warnings and summonses to appear at federal hearings. The DA's office was considering charges, but the minimum was hefty fines and probation. Northern Trust, meanwhile, faced a far more extensive and painful investigation. I stood in the parking lot, a cold wind fluttering the hem of my jacket. My family was driving away in separate cars. My father, hunched over, drove away with my mother, who sat staring out the window, her face empty and old. Vanessa, still in her wedding dress, someone else's jacket draped over her shoulders, drove off with one of her bridesmaids. No one looked my way. No one. As I was opening my car door, Patricia Morrison approached me. Her face was serious, but without a hint of judgment. Inspector Chin. Mrs. Morrison, I sighed. I'm truly sorry about this. Don't apologize, she said clearly. You were doing your job. You followed the law, and you may have saved my son from disaster. I smiled weakly. That wasn't my intention. I know, but as a side effect, it's priceless. She paused, taking a business card from her bag. I appreciate your candor, and if you ever need a change of scenery, Derek works in corporate law. His firm needs people with your expertise. I think you could use some distance right now." I took the card. The gesture was unexpected and deeply touching. "Thank you." On the way home, my phone blew up with messages. Not from my family. It was deathly silent. It was colleagues, Director Walsh, the DA's office. Walsh called as I was pulling into the underground parking garage. "Maya, impeccable work. I know how hard it was, but you did absolutely the right thing. The Northern Trust case will be a turning point. The irony is, it was your family's theft that gave us perfect evidence of a systemic failure." "Thank you, sir. Take a few days off. You've earned it. And Maya, I recommend you for a promotion. Lead inspector. Your team. You've more than proven you're ready." We ended the call. I sat in the car for a long time in the dark parking garage, listening to the ticking of the engine cooling down after the drive. Then the phone vibrated again, an unfamiliar number. "This is Derek. Mom gave me the number. I wanted to say thank you and apologize for the situation you were put in. You deserve better. If you ever want to have coffee and talk about something other than federal crimes, I'd be happy to." I smiled and kept in touch. "Coffee sounds great. Next week?" The answer came instantly. "Deal. A date without wedding implications." I laughed in the empty car. The sound was unusually light. 3 days later, Mom called. I almost hung up, but I picked it up. "Why?" Her voice was quiet, broken. "The prosecutor called. We have to pay back $47,000, plus fines, 20 each, and 2 years probation." "I know," I answered quietly. "Vanessa isn't talking to me. She blames me for having your bank account information. Derek broke up with her. She went back to her room and just cried." I remained silent. "Dad says that we should have treated you better, that we didn't appreciate what you've accomplished." He's right. A long pause, punctuated by labored breathing. "I didn't know about MIT. I didn't know about the ministry. I didn't know because I didn't ask. I just assumed. You assumed I was a failure because I didn't shout about my successes. You assumed I was unimportant because I didn't demand attention. You assumed what was mine was yours because that's how it always was." "Yes," her voice wavered. "That's true. And I'm sorry, Maya. Not because we got caught, not because of the fines or the suspended sentence, but because we treated you terribly, and you deserved so much better." Those were the first sincere words I'd heard from her in my entire life. Thank you for saying that. Can we fix this? Get our relationship back? I don't know. That takes time and real change, not words, but actions. You all need to rethink how you've treated me over the years. Not just this one, everything. We'll review it, I promise. Just don't write us off completely. I'm not writing you off, but I won't tolerate being treated like lesser anymore. Clear boundaries, Mom. Real respect. Or no relationship. Clear boundaries, she repeated, as if trying out unfamiliar words. Real respect. I get it. After the conversation, I walked around my apartment, spacious, bright, bought with my own money. I looked out the window at the city lights. I thought about my career, about a promotion, about coffee with Derek, about the new team I'll be assembling, about the reforms that will begin after this case. My family tried to take from me what they thought I'd easily give up. In the end, they lost everything, and I lost nothing that mattered. I opened my laptop and began drafting my acceptance speech for the new position. Chief Inspector Maya Chin. It sounded right. And somewhere on the other side of town, in a house full of shattered illusions, my family was finally learning what I'd always known. Quiet competence is stronger than a loud sense of self-importance. Always. The wedding that never happened turned into a high-profile federal case. Northern Trust conducted a comprehensive security audit, and I got the chance to do what I do best, protect and hold accountable. Even if the guilty ones are your blood. Especially if the guilty ones are your blood. Because that's what true honesty looks like. Inconvenient, uncompromising, but the only possible one.